Mood whiplash. You know that feeling. When something really silly and happy and fun just happened, and then all of a sudden things get really serious and dark and dramatic or depressing, or vice versa. At this point in the comics' history, mood whiplash between the issues is going to be pretty frequent, and is primarily because, at this point in time, we have two writers on the book that had very different writing styles. The last issue demonstrated the more dramatic style of our dear friend Ken Penders, while today's issue is from Angelo DeCesare, who is responsible for a good many of the more humor-centric issues that came before issue 19. As such, here, they're sticking to what they know. The cover is alright, even if it is a blatant lie. Dr. Robotnik, freedom fighter! Yeah, I think we're all aware that's not happening, but it does at least make a person interested in what's on the inside. Who is this giant metal person who's captured Sonic and Robotnik? Why is there space in the background? What flavor of bubblegum is Tails chewing on? Let's discover the answers together. It's probably watermelon. The plot opens with Sonic doing a little dance for us. Bugs did it better. Turns out that there are ants in his shoes as opposed to his pants that somehow escaped from Rotor's ant farm. When Sonic asks why he keeps ants as pets, Rotor states that not only does he enjoy watching them, but they also like it in the ant farm. Sonic snarks that they probably wouldn't keep escaping if they enjoyed being in captivity. Could this potentially be used as an analog for a bit of a moral later in the story? Maybe, probably, I wouldn't know. And then Robotnik leaps out and fires a portable roboticizer at them. Holy crap, that's actually a pretty significant reveal, a portable version of the machine that turns living beings into mindless robotic slaves. And much like the roboticizer on wheels from when Bunny was introduced, this is the only time it's ever mentioned or used. And then they all get sucked up into space. Yeah, a bit of a jarring transition. At one point, Sonic's running to save Rotor, who's in Robotnik's line of fire, and then boom, metal tube into space. No establishing shots, no sort of warning that it's coming. It's not there one panel, and then in the next one, it's... They're brought on board a spaceship where they are met by a large metallic alien who calls himself Karhim. He describes himself as a collector of species from other worlds and makes plain that he wants to keep Sonic, Robotnik, and friends as part of his collection so that he can study them. Despite him threatening to dispose of Robotnik, Sonic and Sally, for some reason, decide to stick up for him and claim that they're all interdependent with one another. Why? I don't know. Honor or some crap like that. You guys do remember this is the guy who conquered your entire planet and is slowly polluting it to the point where it may become uninhabitable, right? Anyway, Karhim puts them all into an observation tank, and after a bit of pressure, Robotnik is sworn in as a freedom fighter, since it's basically the only way he'll be able to survive this encounter. Later that night, Robotnik states that he can build a relatively powerful machine if the freedom fighters gather the proper materials for him. They agree despite the fact that they don't trust Robotnik, which they shouldn't, and it's very obvious that a double cross is coming pretty soon. The following morning, Karhim discovers Sonic playing possum on the ground and reaches in to remove and examine him. Sonic takes this as an opportunity to act as a distraction, dashing up his arm, getting into his suit, and generally acting as annoying as that one mosquito that just won't stop hovering around your head. And then we get the reveal of the device Robotnik spent the night building, and oh my god, it's glorious. The Turtle Van, Fortress Macross, the Pope-mobile, they've got nothing on a wagon with a helicopter blade on top. And of course it works because we're back operating on cartoon logic. Rather than flying somewhere where they can hide, Robotnik lands them on top of the control panel nearby and hits the hatch release button, opening up a door to outer space, getting Karhim and Sonic, still in his spacesuit, pulled out into space. Tails and Sally make this observation. You're no freedom fighter, mustache face! Freedom fighters value all life, whether friend or enemy. 1. No shit, Sherlock. I'm fairly certain that everyone involved knew from the moment he was inducted that it was only a temporary truce. 2. Really, Sally? All life? Like the life you valued when you sent an innocent creature out into the wild where it would most likely get killed or roboticized because it ruined your birthday cake? Or how you tried to send Larry Lynx out on his own where he would most likely get killed or roboticized because you thought he was a jinx? Yep, you really valued life there. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to call her out on that stuff for much longer when we actually start getting into more and more serious topics, so I'm taking these pot shots when I can. because we're gonna really get into the weird direction Sally's character took later in the series. And finally, valuing life is fine and all, but I'd just like to remind you, you are talking to a genocidal dictator who just last issue revealed that even in his death, he had a contingency designed specifically to destroy the entire world. Valuing life is fine and all, but I'm pretty sure exceptions can be made here and there for the truly, undisputedly heinous. Anyway, the team detains Robotnik by simply pushing his arms behind his back and then reel Karheem and Sonic in. Karheem apologizes to them, thanks them for saving his life, and promises that he will no longer collect living beings and stick to collecting things like comic books. And then we cut back to Mobius, where Rotor has released all of his ants out into the wild, bringing the moral full circle, only for it to be revealed that the ants have gotten into everyone's fur and are causing them to itch like crazy. The mood whiplash is palpable in this issue compared to the last couple of stories we've gotten out of the main comic. Like I said near the start of the review, it is most likely due to the two writers having two very different ideas about the direction of the series, and two very different writing styles. But even with the more comedic stylings of DeCesar in mind, there comes a point where a comic, even a kid's comedy comic, is far too simplistic for its own good. It might just be because we're coming off of such a serious story that came before, but this tale feels especially underwhelming and simplistic, almost like it just plays out like a basic outline for the story. I do appreciate the bookends for the moral with Rotor and his ant farm, but because it isn't really given that much time to be relevant or be talked about, it feels very forced, especially with the fact that the resolution to this particular subplot in the issue is the last 2 panels and is played completely for comedic effect. Likewise, the artwork in this issue is done by Dave Manek, and compared to the relatively well-detailed environments and character designs of the last 2 issues or so, it highlights the more simplistic cartoonish style in this one. We did see the style in the last issue's backup story, but comparing main story to main story, the simpler style really stands out. It works just fine when paired with a simple story like this, and Manek's details are getting a lot better than some of the earlier issues where the characters were much more angular and far less detailed. Here, he really is showing off that he has a better grasp of the character's anatomy. The next 3 or so pages of the comic are dedicated to showing off the winners of the Write Your Own Dialogue contest that we had several issues ago. I wrestled with it for a while, but I decided not to look these pages over here in the review since they are, for the most part, fan-made and don't really reflect the actual quality of the comic itself. So let's move on to our backup story. One that I actually really like, and that would lead to, in my eyes, one of the best recurring aspects of the comic in later issues. It's once again handled by DeCesar and Manek as writer and artist respectively, so you know we're in for a relatively lighthearted adventure once again. The backup story, The Vol Ant Tear, starts with a scared Antoine discovering Tails sulking outside his house. Turns out Tails had accidentally left a power ring somewhere in Robotropolis. No explanation given as to why he was in Robotropolis with the power ring, Sonic just gave it to him, and he left it somewhere. Antoine, being the boaster that he is, quickly volunteers himself to go and get it. Bunny just happens to overhear as well. And over the next 4 pages or so, we see Antoine as he walks through Robotropolis, looking through the city for the missing ring, and apparently getting very lucky in some sort of misfortune falling upon anyone that tries to attack him or stop him from completing his mission. Almost like someone was following after him and making sure he didn't screw up. Antoine does find the ring and returns it to Tails, much to the praise of both Tails and Bunny. But as Tails flies off with the ring, stating that he'll keep it their little secret, Antoine turns to Bunny and gives her a soft kiss on the cheek, thanking her for their little secret, implying that he knew she was following him and helping him through the city. This is a fun little adventure for Antoine, and is the start of quite a few things in the comic. First, it's the start of Antoine's character development, something that he would get a lot of over the course of the series, both for good and for ill, and is also the true start of his and Bunny's romantic relationship, yet another aspect of the series that I absolutely love, and that would develop and blossom into one of the only unfettered romantic relationships in the entire book. Again, artwork is by Dave Manek, and it works well for the story. Nothing looks horrendously out of place, and I like the varied environments we get over the small selection of pages. The story itself is finely presented, though one does have to wonder at what point Antoine realized that Bunny was helping him, and if he was even aware he was in any danger in the first place. This is me just projecting my own thoughts into the comic, but I'd like to think that Antoine figured out he was being followed early on and was so confident in Bunny's ability to keep him safe that he didn't panic when he was put in imminent danger. That's my story and I'm sticking to it. Headcanon for the win! So, another issue down, so let's move on to... Wait, what? What do you mean I missed something? We're going in numbered sequence here. What? The Sally miniseries? Ah, fuck.